In this video, I'm going to do a more advanced data conversion. I'm going to take this IRS Publication 15T, which is the withholding tables that they give out every year. And I'm going to convert this to Excel and then extract the data that I need. If you've ever used Adobe's Convert to Excel or another third-party tool's PDF to Excel function, you're probably familiar with something like this where it really just converts the data to Excel, but it's really kind of jumbled up and you have 1,000 different columns where some are merged, some are not. And then you have your data here, but then you might have breaks in between it, so you really can't use it. Well, we need to convert that data, and this is going to be a more advanced conversion, and I'll link the video to my the more simple conversion to kind of give you that baseline. And now I'll show you how to do this more advanced conversion. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Developer tab, go to Visual Basic, and then I'm going to insert a module because this is where I'm going to do all my macros. I'm going to call this one admin module, same as that I do for the tools. But I'm going to do this entire conversion within this workbook, and I will have to save it as an XLSM or an XLSB file after I put the macros in here. But for right now, I'm going to insert two different modules, and I'm going to call it convert module and an admin module. And I'm going to go ahead and take a couple functions from my tools that I created in the previous video, and I'm going to copy them over here so they're in there. You can actually reference between workbooks, but that is kind of bad form. And so if you're going to use code that's in a different workbook and this one's in the XLAM file, it's best just to copy it over and not reference it directly, because if you try to do it by referencing it, if that file's not there, you'll get an error and it can be a nightmare. So now I'm going to go into my convert module, and this is where I'm going to set up my function to convert it. And I'm just going to call it subconvert data. So I'm going to declare a variable just like in the last video. And I'm going to set it to a specific sheet. And then this one is sheet 1. That's the one that was converted that has the IRS Pub 15. And then I'm going to grab all of the data and put it into memory. So now I'm going to declare my report variant. And so that created a grid within memory that is completely blank, ready for me to put data into it. And now I'm going to create my column headers. So what those are, these each are corresponding to different fields that I want to extract out of this data here on the left-hand side. And then I create a J as my incrementer. That's going to be the row that I'm working on of my report variant. And I automatically set it to 1 because I already have row 1 set with the column headers. So just like in the previous video, what I want to do now is set a column number for each of the different fields that I'm looking for. And so I'm just going to call it I_call period and equals, and I'm going to look over here. Period is going to be like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, or whatever. And so that's actually going to pull from right here. And I can see that that's actually in column A. Even though it's merged 50 columns, it's in column A. So as far as the V data goes, it's going to be in column 1. And I'm going to do that for all of my different columns here. So now I've got my columns all defined, and just to go through, so I have I column of marrying filed jointly 12, because if I come over here, if I select, because this is column 1, column 2 of each of the different types of the IRS publication, like head of household has 2 different ones based on the W-4 checkbox. And so the first one is in column L, which is the 12th letter of the alphabet, and then like S, which is the 19th, and that's how it comes out from 12 and 19 and so on for each of the different. So all 6 of those columns are ones I want to use, extract from here. So I've defined their column numbers. Now it's time to actually read the data and go through it line by line. So now what the first thing I'm going to do is set up my for loop and start reading the data. So I'm going to say for I equals 1 to U bound V data 1. So I've set up my for loop, and So the U-bound VData1, that's going to be the first dimension of VData. And now since it's a rows and columns, the first dimension is 1, which is rows. If I did 2, that would be columns, but I'm going to go through it row by row. And so first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and read all of the columns that I've selected from up here. So all the I call period and stuff, I'm going to actually set a lot of them into a variable themselves so I can reuse them. So all I did was put the values in the columns that I'm looking at into variables. And so I just changed it. I call was for the integer of the column here. So I know it's a number. S is just a string because the cell's value is going to be a string, a text value. I mean, it might have numbers in it too, but it's going to be a string value. So I just put in a string variable. So now the next step in extracting the data is going through and finding what is unique about a row of data that you're looking for. And so like if I'm looking for the payroll period, which, and if I scroll down, it's in this cell. Well, what's unique about this cell? Well, I could say it's merged, but that's not actually going to help me because that VData variant doesn't care about merged. But what I can see about this is that it ends in the word payroll period. And that's the entire cell content. So like, and as I scroll through, I don't see any other cells in the first column that end in the words payroll period. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to put that in there as my test. And now I'm going to actually extract the period to its own variable called s period. Okay, so what that does is I'm creating a new variable and I'm taking the left part of the cell contents and I'm taking it all the way up into that first space because here I have a weekly payroll period. Well, it's going to next one will be bi-weekly and it'll have a space in between it. So I'm taking all the characters left of the first space. So that's what this little function right here does. And now I could do a quick test and with debug.print s period, and then I can click play right now and it'll actually go through and then run it. And then you can quickly look at your results and to make sure that you have got the right things that you're looking for. Well, I see weekly and I see 2025. And so I see some things that I'm not necessarily wanting. So what that tells me is I need to be more specific on here. I'm close. I'm getting some of the data, but I'm not getting all of it. And looking through this, table and payroll only show up once, so it's likely that those are probably from the header of the PDF, so I'm not as concerned about those. So, and because as it reads it, it might overwrite period before I even get to my first row of data anyway. But 2025 does show up a lot. So the way to fix that is I'm just going to exclude 2025. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm looking for ending in payroll period. I'm excluding 2025. I'm going to clear out what I have here. If I click play, now I'm actually getting only that stuff. Now I do get table and payroll at the top, but I can assume that those are probably going to go away since they don't appear every time. So it's probably not something that's repeated throughout the PDF. So now next thing I need to do is extract the rest of the data. So I've got my first column here and I can't put it in the variant yet because I don't necessarily have my ending data. I need the last field of data before I can actually start pasting it into the report variant. So now that I've got my period, which is my first column, I need to look at my next column. So I need min, max, filing type, standard, and W4. Well, those are all going to be on the same line. So as I can see here, they're all on the same line always. So what can I do? What is unique about that? Well, they're all numeric. They're all it have a value, so they're not blank, and they're all in those specific columns. So let's use that as the unique identifier. I've said all these will test to see if the values that I'm looking for in individual columns are numeric, but there is a problem with the isNumeric function is that it also returns true if the value is blank, and that's going to cause some errors. So I also want to account for blank values. So I'm going to add those as additional tests as well. I could just put this directly into the variant and go from there. But what I want to actually do is have married filing jointly be on one line, and then out of household on another line, and single on a different line. And so the best way to do that is actually to create a function that's going to add the values to the report variant. So I'm going to come down here and add a private function to add to report. And then I'm going to pass in my report variant. And I'm going to use by ref because I want it to pass it and then it also go back to it as well. Because if I did by val, it actually passes to the add report variant, but it is not going to update the original one. So by using reference ones, it's actually going to update the original and send it back to the calling function. Okay, so I'm going to expand this here a little bit. And so I've created this function that's going to be reused so I can send multiple data to it at a time. And it's going to take the report and the J, which is my incrementer, and the period, the min amount, max amount, the what filing type I'm looking at, and the standard deduction or standard withholding, and then the W-4 withholding as two different numbers. So now I've got the function with the parameters. I actually have to add the data here. And so this is fairly simple, just like I did in the other video where I just you increment J to know I'm adding a row, and then I just put all the data in the variant. Okay, so now this function will actually add the data that you pass to it to the variant. And so now back up in my loop that's reading the data, I'm going to actually call that function, and I'm going to call it 3 times. I'm going to call it once for the married, once for the head of household, and once for single. Okay, so now I'm going to call this function 3 different times. And let me expand this out. And so I'm going to pass the different values each time. The min and max are always going to be the same because those are on the same line. But for married filing jointly, I'm going to pass the married file jointly numbers and so on and so forth for the other different things there. Okay, so that's going to pass it into the report variant. So it's going to read that whole data and it's going to put it all in that report variant. When I get to the bottom, now I got to paste that data into the sheet, into a new sheet. Okay, so this function here, it tests to see if J is greater than it was when it started because I set it at 1. So if it found any data, it should be greater than 1. And that's just so I'm not trying to paste blank data. And then I'm going to add the new sheet. I'm going to call it data. And then I'm just going to paste the data, make my cells auto fit. And then I'm just going to select A1 just to be on the end. And now it's time to test. And before you test, you can always run a compile to see if you have any errors. Oh, and I see I have one right there. Right here, I didn't specify that it was supposed to be a by val instead of a by ref. All the others I specified by ref, and so it didn't like that. So now I can come back here, compile, no errors. So it doesn't really tell you that you succeeded, but the fact that you didn't get an error, you know that it's working. So I'm going to click play. And as you can see, it quickly ran through and read all the data and extracted it for me. So now I have all the data, no breaks, and exactly how I wanted it. So, and if I wanted to run a quick pivot table, and so now I have my data. I can say, oh, what is my head of household on a monthly basis? And so I have a quick pivot table. So I hope you found this video useful. VBA is just such a powerful tool where you could take fragmented data and turn it into a very structured table within a few minutes and actually not that many lines of code. This one is a fairly advanced conversion, but you can do all different types of conversion. It can get even more complicated than this, and it can be simpler. This one has 3 rows for every row of data you find. That can be a little more complicated. Those ones that are 1 for 1 tend to be easier, like the previous video that I did. But you can pretty much, as long as you can have any kind of uniqueness to the data in any way, you can convert it and get the data that you're looking for. And that is just unbelievably powerful. So I hope you like it. Please like and subscribe.